Hi there, and today I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about a traditional American Thanksgiving. Stay tuned. Hi there and welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Kelly and I'm an American living in Denmark. But because I live in Denmark does not mean that I want to give up on my American traditions. So I'm going to share some of those traditions with you. And one day that I feel more American than any other is on a day like today, which is Thanksgiving. Before we get started though, go ahead and click on that red subscribe button. Ding! So in this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Thanksgiving was like for me living in the US, some of my experiences with Thanksgiving as a child, as an adult, and how is it that we celebrate Thanksgiving in Denmark. And also, as a little extra tip, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Black Friday in the US and in Denmark. So you'll have to check out the very end of the video for that little bit of information. Well, for starters, I was born and raised in the United States. And when I was younger, I actually lived in a town where a lot of my family either lived or they lived in the area. I come from a small town in Ohio, if you know your geography. And I have a lot of really good memories of Thanksgiving. It is, in fact, my favorite holiday. I like it more than others for the fact that I just love the idea of what Thanksgiving is, giving thanks. It just sits right with me. I like the food that is involved in Thanksgiving, and I like some of the traditions that I've grown up with. For example, when I was a kid, and even now, if I lived in the United States, this is what I would do. Around 10 o'clock in the morning for where we lived, we would have the parade start. And usually this was Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So if you've ever seen that old-fashioned Christmas movie called Miracle on 34th Street, you would know about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. But if you are just American, you know that that's something that is played in the mornings on Thanksgiving. And then it went until noon. And usually around noon, that's when football would start. There would be some type of game that would be a special Thanksgiving Day game, and then there would be commentators talking back and forth, whatever. So it would be like a nice transition. And the parade was something that I always looked forward to because they had these huge balloons. And it was so exciting to see what big balloons they would have that year. Then they would also have marching bands, and then there would be these decorative floats. And a lot of times on the decorative floats, there would be some type of famous person. Most often, they would be people who were singing. As a kid, there'd always be like a Sesame Street float with like your favorite Sesame Street characters. And then there would be a lot of other floats that might have something to do with New York in some way, or maybe some company. So a company would sponsor a float and then they would kind of tailor it to whatever it was, like Ocean Spray cranberry juice or something like that. Because cranberries are really important for Thanksgiving, if you ask me. So having them in the parade makes total sense. But the grand finale of the parade would always be this large float with Santa Claus. So in a way, when Thanksgiving is over in the US, we are right into getting ready for Christmas. That's not to say that people don't already start decorating for Christmas. I'm sure there are plenty of people who have already started at some point in time before Thanksgiving. But I always like to celebrate Thanksgiving and then decorate for Christmas. And I think that's probably also a big reason why Black Friday is the day after Thanksgiving. Along with the parade, I have some really good memories of celebrating Thanksgiving as a family. There was one Thanksgiving in particular that I remember where we went to a hall to celebrate it with our family because that's how many people were there. It was very, very large. My great-grandfather is a twin, all of his family, and his twin sister, and all of her family. So if you can imagine how many people were probably there. And of course, not everybody could come, but it was something that was really kind of fun to have so many people there. And of course, I have quite a few cousins who are about the same age that we got to spend the holiday with. A lot of the women would be in the kitchen of the hall making the meal, the men would be talking, and the kids would be playing. That's kind of how things were as a child growing up in the US. There were other times when it would be maybe a smaller Thanksgiving gathering where it might just be immediate family at our house or at somebody else's house. And usually the food is pretty much the same. I think sometimes we differ a little bit on what kind of potatoes we have, but I can show you exactly what it is that we're gonna have at our Thanksgiving Day meal today in a minute. But along with these traditions that we have, it was just a really nice time to be off of school. As a kid, Thanksgiving is always on the fourth Thursday of November, and we would actually just take off Friday as well from school. So we would have a long 4-day weekend. You know, at school, we would do some type of Thanksgiving Day crafts. Maybe we would make pilgrim hats, or we would use our handprint to trace out a turkey or something like that. I actually did something like that with my children, and I'll show you one of their crafts right now. And you could see we used paint and different fabrics and things when my children were, I don't know, toddlers maybe, to make little things, just so you can remember. And sometimes we make crafts out of candy and chocolates and things like that. And it all depends. Everybody's Thanksgiving is going to be different. And because of where I lived and my family's background, it's going to be completely different than the next person's. If you lived in the South, you're going to have different foods at your Thanksgiving compared to people who lived in the North, like where I lived. One thing that I like to do as an adult for Thanksgiving, I don't necessarily get into making all of those kid crafts and things that maybe I did before, but I really love to decorate every time there's a different holiday, as much as I can. Behind me, you can see that I have these ceramic pumpkins. Behind me, you can see a little craft that my boys made. It's a house with a turkey and some pilgrims and that they colored when they were itty bitties. But you can look at the history. It's changed throughout the course of the years, and I know that it's more celebrated now than it even was back then. But I also have this little banner here that says give thanks. It's not so easy to see. And then we have other things that we put on the table. I'm going to show you what my Thanksgiving Day table is going to look like. So here you can see just an example of what my table looks like. I have an orange tablecloth, and I have some placemats and some decorative napkins, and we have little turkey name tags so everybody knows where they're going to be sitting. Sometimes we might change out the glasses or add more glasses throughout the meal, but that all depends on really what people want. We've got our little turkey candles that we light on the table, a little decorative centerpiece, extra napkins because you never know. And these were sent to me from my sister in the US because of course you can't find that stuff here. Yeah, but this is pretty much what we have on the table, and the food we keep out in the kitchen. Now my husband is Danish, and when we lived in the US, we made sure to celebrate some of his own traditions for different holidays that we share in common, like Christmas, for example. But Thanksgiving is something that is totally different that they don't have here in Denmark. So we were able just to make it completely authentic. Here in Denmark, we try to do the same thing, but sometimes it's a little bit more difficult where I live in the middle of Denmark to be able to find everything that I need. Luckily for me though, that is changing. There's so much that is available, and there are so many websites that are coming up that offer food that maybe you would like for certain meals. When I think about the cranberry relish, for example, I need Jell-O and I need cranberry sauce for that. Those are two things that you can't really find easily in Denmark. Maybe if you live in a bigger city, you might have access to more variety in your grocery stores, but I don't here. A lot of things I have to make from scratch. Canned pumpkin is something that's also really helpful if you want to make something a little bit quicker because there's a lot of food involved with Thanksgiving. So sometimes it's nice to have canned pumpkin. I actually have canned pumpkin from one of the last trips that we went on. I was sure to stock up on some of the things that I knew I would need for Thanksgiving. But luckily I know how to make pumpkin pie and other things from scratch with a real pumpkin, so I have that if I need to. But there are so many things that I have to make from scratch that in the US I could just go grab a can of this and a can of that and make something a little bit simpler. So what is it that we eat for Thanksgiving? Well, of course, people always think about turkey. Turkey is a must. In the US, people can make turkey a lot of different ways. I know that people can even deep fry a turkey. We don't normally buy a whole turkey. I think when we were little, that was something that we did, and then we would take the wishbone and try and break it and see who got the bigger half of the wishbone, and that was kind of good luck for you if you did. But I think we realized throughout the course of the years that more people liked white meat instead of the dark meat. So we actually just now buy turkey breast instead of a full turkey. It also doesn't take as long to cook, which is really helpful. You have to have some type of potato. I've been to Thanksgivings where they serve like a cheesy potato or there's mashed potatoes. I personally like mashed potatoes. It's one of my favorite things. I think it also goes really well when you kind of, blend things on your plate. A lot of people also have stuffing, and that's kind of like bread, and maybe it has, dried fruits and different things, but I've never had stuffing really before. Normally you have like these box mixes. In the US, it's called stovetop, where you could get lots of different kinds of stuffing, but usually they have some type of, I don't know if it's like meat flavors to it, or it's some type of meat in it, but being a vegetarian, I've just never touched the stuff. It would be kind of nice to try one of these times, but I've never grown up with it, so it's not something that we serve for our Thanksgiving. We also like to have a nice variety of vegetables. Usually we will have some honey glazed carrots. I know that whenever we have Thanksgiving with my sister, she usually makes green bean casserole, but that usually has mushrooms in it, and I'm not a big mushroom person. But you can probably Google green bean casserole and find a recipe. I've never made it, and I've never really eaten it. It's just different. Like I said, so many people have their own kind of norms for what is expected for Thanksgiving. And sometimes, it's what you feel like making. Macaroni and cheese would be a really nice thing to have for Thanksgiving. We actually just had it, so we're not having it today for Thanksgiving, but that's another option. I like to usually have corn for Thanksgiving as well. Maybe it's just regular corn like what you'd find in a can or in the freezer section, put with butter or something. But I also really like to make a corn casserole. Casseroles are really yummy, and I think it adds a little bit of a different flavor. Along with that, we usually will have some buns or biscuits. I know that if you understand the British English, they call cookies biscuits. That's not what I'm saying. I think if you are British, your version of a scone is what we would call a biscuit. And to me, that's very much what we would serve for Thanksgiving. So it's something that, you would put butter and jam on kind of thing. And we would always have those for Thanksgiving. My mom's were always so good. I also really love to have deviled eggs for any occasion. Christmas, Easter, birthdays. We really like deviled eggs in our house, and so we normally will have those also for Thanksgiving. And it really can differ. We will have pies, pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie. I think they taste somewhat similar, so I generally don't make both at the same time, so I might make one or the other. But you can have other types of pie, you can have apple pie, sometimes people might have cookies or something else that's made out of pumpkin. I like to make pumpkin muffins if I don't make pumpkin pie, and those you can either freeze or you can send them home with people, for example. I would always look forward to my mom's cranberry relish because it was so good. And I look forward to it now, to having it today with our Thanksgiving Day meal. But we tend to eat cranberry relish with the meal, not as a dessert. So that's kind of interesting. I think a lot of people like to put it on top of their turkey even. I think what I really love about Thanksgiving is that there are so many things for me, even as a vegetarian, that I just absolutely love. Yes, of course, we still have turkey. We've had turkey at every Thanksgiving I've been to because I'm surrounded by meat eaters, which is fine because I really love the rest of what we have for Thanksgiving. The thing is, though, that living in Denmark, we haven't really established a tradition for Thanksgiving as of yet. And though that might be enough time to establish some type of routine, we just haven't. The Thanksgivings that we have had in the past, we have actually invited friends over. And these are usually people who are not American and they do not understand the tradition of Thanksgiving. So they've come over to experience it with us for the first time. So it's been kind of nice to share a little bit with them about that. Normally what we will do is we will have the parade on, and yes, it's actually the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, but because we don't celebrate normally on the actual Thanksgiving Day, because it's on a Thursday and people either work or go to school or whatever, we usually celebrate it on a weekend, either before or after. And that's usually a Saturday or a Sunday. So we will stream last year's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and have that playing. And that way my children get to grow up with seeing the balloons and understanding what the parade is, just as I did when I was a child. Then we will have everyone over and we will actually have a meal. Because there is so much in the ways of different types of food and bowls and all these types of things, we leave all the food in the kitchen and we ask our guests to go out and get it. This is something that's very common for my family growing up. Our table has almost always been in the kitchen, and so we would just leave the food on the counter or we would leave it on the stove and then everybody could just take what it is that they wanted. One part that I really love about Thanksgiving is that we hold hands and we do a little prayer. And if you're not religious, this is not a scary thing. It's just more of a way of showing appreciation and showing thankfulness for what it is that you have. And we go around the table and we say what we're thankful for. And I know that people who are not American, they really appreciate this because it's something that they're just not used to. They think it's kind of interesting and fun. And then after that, we eat, and we eat. Normally on a Thanksgiving in the US, we would always have a lunchtime Thanksgiving. Maybe you would even have a meal at one house and then the next meal at another house, and then you'd just be eating all day long. It's like, oh, I gotta go to this grandma's for lunch and this grandma's for supper kind of thing. That's not uncommon. It was kind of nice for us when we had moved from Ohio to Illinois, when it was just my immediate family. So we would start eating this nice Thanksgiving Day lunch and we would just take our time and we would play games in the afternoon. And like I said, the football game was on in the background in case, some of the guys would want to watch football and the ladies would sit in the kitchen and talk about whatever. One thing that I really loved right before we moved was that we would get a newspaper on Thanksgiving with all of the flyers and advertisements for Black Friday, since Black Friday was the very next day. So we would sit there and we would just pass them around. We would look through to see if there's anything in there that we wanted, and then we would pass it. And I really like that. I mean, I'm a bargain shopper. I really like to find things at a good price, and we would usually go shopping. In the last few years, they've actually started Thanksgiving Day sales, which in a way I'm a little bit torn about because I don't really like the fact that people have to work on a day when they should be at home with their families. We moved from Ohio to Illinois when I was 11, and it was on Thanksgiving Day. There was nothing open. There was nowhere you could go to get anything or stop and get a meal or anything like that. But things have definitely changed over the course of the years. But I can tell you that we have actually gone out on Thanksgiving night and we have gone bargain shopping. We find the place that has the best deals and we go in there with something very specific in mind. That's how you have to attack these Black Friday sales. You have to find exactly what you want and go. It's also a lot nicer in my opinion because on Black Friday you could stand in line for a very long time. I remember one time getting in line at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's cold in Northern Illinois. I'm wearing a full snowsuit and a hat and scarf. I'm trying to keep myself as warm as possible because you know you're going to be standing in that line for a very long time. Those are things that are common. When you have Black Friday here in Denmark, and it's interesting that they do have Black Friday in Denmark, but I guess if you're in sales, why not jump on board with something like this? A lot of people are buying things online, so it might not really matter where you live. But I know as an American, we always know when Black Friday is because it's the day after Thanksgiving. So I think it's kind of funny. I don't know if Danes are thinking, which day is Black Friday this year? Well, as an American, we already just know it. But in Denmark, you know, they'll have sales, and I have been to some sales, but it's nothing like waiting around the entire building, you know, in a huge building. Now, and sometimes they have these doorbusters where if you show up between, I don't know, 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., you could get this for a very low price, but it has to be at this time. I think that's maybe a change that they've made, which has made it easier, in my opinion, just to know when to go. So if I really want this item, I know I have to go between 9 and 10, for example. I don't have to get there at 3 o'clock in the morning and wait for hours in line in the cold or whatever else. I think that's kind of a nice thing. But in Denmark, you don't see anything crazy. You don't see them opening up a door like you would see in a Walmart video where everybody is running because maybe they have this ad on like 50% off a flat screen TV, but they only have 2 in the store. And the people are just running and, you know, they're getting ran over and... yeah, it's crazy. A lot of stores in the US will have these really, really outrageous sales, but then they will only have like 2 to 5 of the item in their actual store. So it's really important that you get there and you wait and you be the first and all these sorts of things. There are some times when you're waiting out in line, because I remember I waited in line. I don't remember what I bought, like a camcorder, like a video recorder. This was so long ago. I don't even have it anymore. But I waited in line, and then somebody came out with these papers. It was like a wristband or something. Well, if you have this wristband, then you know that you're going to get the deal. And there's only so many wristbands. And, you know, there's just different things like that. But you don't see anything like that in Denmark. But it's 2019. That could change. If you've seen my video on Halloween and the fall traditions that they have here in Denmark, or if you've read my post on my blog, here's my link up here. I had to change it because things changed so much in the 3 years that we lived here that it was unbelievable how nobody knew anything about Halloween. We didn't get anybody at our house. And then all of a sudden we have 40 kids at our house this year. It's amazing. So I don't really know where Black Friday is going to be going in the future in Denmark. It would be very interesting to see, and it'll be very interesting to see here since it's not exactly Black Friday yet. I just don't think that it would get as crazy as it would in the US. We'll see about that. But I am so thankful that it is Thanksgiving. I am very, very excited to eat the food, to go around and say our little prayer of what we're thankful for, of course, to watch the parade. And I'm so glad to be able to share it with my kids so they know what it is like to be American, because this is very much a part of our culture. What is it about your culture that you feel that really stands out? Do you have a childhood memory of a holiday or a tradition that really has a warm spot in your heart? Let me know about it. Tell me about you in the comments. Do you have any questions for me about Thanksgiving or even Black Friday for that matter? Let me know about those as well. At the time that I'm making this video, I am now just over 7,000 subscribers. I am very thankful for each and every one of you. Thanks so much for coming along on this journey with me. Thanks for being so open to what I have to say. And also a very special thank you to those who are connecting with me on my Instagram and my Facebook page. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go and celebrate Thanksgiving with my family. And if you are also celebrating today, I'd like to wish you a happy Thanksgiving and a stay safe Black Friday. As always, take care.